Hey everyone, this is a quick look at the LEGO Star Wars The Mandalorian, the Razor Crest Microfighter version. You know, the ship that the main character hasn't had for months and months and months now because it got blowed up. That's not really a spoiler at this point. It's just the small version of it, and it's unfortunate for LEGO that the ship that they did the full-size version of, and now also this small version of, is kind of irrelevant. You know, was made irrelevant, but they didn't know anything about that, so I'm not going to hold that against them. I'm going to look at this as what it is, a little super deformed version for a cheap price of what was looking like it was going to be an iconic ship, but ended up not being for very long at least. And unfortunately to me, to be honest, this just doesn't capture the look. It has some of the important notes. The tail, the stubby tail right here with the angles to either side. It has the engines there. I don't like the big holes on the sides, but I understand that was part of keeping the part count down and how they got the construction done there. It has to have an action feature. It has to have the ability to shoot. That's just part of the whole Microfighter design, part of the Microfighter template for the sake of play. If you don't want to play with those, you don't have to, but they have to be there. So I can understand those being there. But the whole front end of it, I can see some of the, you know, some of the original design here just a little bit. But ultimately, it just doesn't do it for me personally compared to the other Microfighters. I like Microfighters in general. I think the Millennium Falcons are especially done really well, but this one just misses so much in this forward quarter section and maybe even third of length where the cockpit is along the side of it. I'm okay with the underneath look, and I really appreciate the fact that it has an opening cargo section in the back. That's a nice design feature to put into something that's so cheap and so small. And then, of course, you got the printed console up front, and that's it. Let's take a closer look at the figure. So here's the deal. If you want this figure and you don't have this figure, this is a cheap way to get this figure without having to go onto the aftermarket, you know, without having to use Bricklink and eBay and all that. And it is fully detailed. It's not a cheapened up version for the Microfighter. It does have the printing on both arms, which is nice. And it does have the gunmetal gray colored jetpack or rocket pack on it. However, unfortunately, it also has the wrongly printed head. Every single season, it seems, they get just a little bit lower with the printing. You know, the Din Djarin in particular, and his helmet should have a much narrower section here with a taper for the vertical section of it. But more importantly, for me, to fit with the super deformed look of LEGO things, I'm okay with the proportions looking a little bit chunky, but the eye slit needs to be higher. And I think it used to be higher, and it has just gotten lower and lower and lower. That really takes away from the believability of this one for me. Underneath, there's no face because, well, he wasn't supposed to take his mask off, or his helmet off, but then he did a lot. And of course, story-wise, that's become a whole thing. And this is what the print looks like on the back of the torso, which is pretty good. And for what it's worth, these are the leftover pieces. I paid $10 US for this set, which is just the usual. Thankfully, the prices for these Microfighters has not gone up. But again, overall, I'm just not entirely satisfied with this one. And I think that's okay. You know, you'll win some, you'll lose some. But in this case, I think that this one is kind of a loss between the funky printing of the figure, because a lot of the time people will get these mostly for the figure, but it's still not a good version of that. And the build is fine, you know, like the assembly process is fine, and I think it's a fine parts pack, but just overall the thing doesn't present that well to me. Is it a fine toy? Yeah, it's perfectly fine for just something to, you know, to have a figure and to fly around with. It's of course perfectly swishable. It's got the shooters on there, so it works fine as a toy. It just could have been better, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts though. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.